the installation, and so on and so forth. On this grant, I worked with, on the second one, I worked with Bill Muirhead, and we put his name first, so that we could get this money here. And Bill's not here, and I don't think he's online either. So thanks, Bill, for putting up with my antics and the way I was writing this grant application. Bill's out of town. Safer for me. And if this thing gets recorded and gets sent to him, well, nothing I haven't told him before. So this was this is actually sort of like the plan that we had put together before we built this thing, and actually for those who've seen the lab since, basically that's what it looks like on the mezzanine. And by the way, you'll all be welcome to come and visit at any time. So intended to be a very visible hub for research, and the equipment that was part of the fund was targeted for a specific kind of project. Now, the equipment to be used for the project, because we're part of the IDI and the AGIS project, so on and so forth, which is very focused on the idea of accessibility, learning disabilities, and all that kind of area, if you want, greater area of research. And in our case, what we were focusing on is mobile devices used by kids with learning disabilities. And since then, we've started to really focus on the whole idea of autism, because we've had a lot of great students that are heavily involved with the whole question of ASD, autistic syndrome disorder, and have put in a lot of work. We've already got a few master's theses that have come out, and we've got a few more coming into play right now by some of the great students. The installation was slow, but it's now up and it's now working. So what is the purpose of not the whole lab, but the installation of the equipment as it sits? It doesn't mean it can't do something else, but what was the original purpose is to give us the ability to examine any kind of interaction in that learning relationship when you've got technology that's involved in the process. Okay. The intent originally, when we were basically designing the idea of the lab, is that a lot of the research that's been done with technology is done with pre and post kind of thing. You know, like we have the teachers and the kids use the technology, then we ask them beforehand what they think about it, or we ask them afterwards what they thought about it, and sometimes we'll take notes during the process. This idea was to be able to actually record very specific sets of data to then be analyzed qualitatively, quantitatively, however you want to do it, but to be able to get a multi-perspective recording of specific interactions between user, machine, or users with the technology in between, if you want. And that's basically what the setup the way the setup was done was to be able to do exactly that. Between the time we put in the grant application and the time we got it and we got the technology, thank God the technology evolved and made some of the things that we were planning, that were put on paper. We had no idea how this was going to get done. But lo and behold, some people were thinking, and so the technology came afterwards, and hey, we can actually buy this off the shelf now. And that sort of like really helped. The method, like I said, it's the idea of the multifaceted kind of recording. So basically we can record, and I'll show you a little bit of the equipment and how it's set up. But whoops, forward. But the idea is that view it inside the lab right now. You've got these ceiling mounted cameras. You've got the desktop microphones and so on and so forth. And the whole thing is brought into a system. Now the idea of those remote controlled cameras, they're all HD. They allow us to view whatever's happening on the desk with the user and interacting with the technology, or even outside the technology. We've got cameras that can actually record facial expressions, and then we can actually analyze facial expressions afterwards. You've got tabletop microphones that can obviously will record all of the interactions between the users or user and whatever. And we've got, obviously we can take the feed from any of those devices and feed it into the system. The beauty of it is that all of this gets brought together into one recording. Everything is sort of like not recorded separately, and then you have to try to find things, but it's recorded all in the same kind of environment, so that then time-wise you can see from any perspective at any given time exactly what is happening, and you can code it. Okay. So obviously we're using the Nolda suite, which didn't exist when we put in the grant 5 years ago. But there's the Observer XT is what allows us to bring in all the video feeds into one screen and to code it. And there's the Nolda's face reader that will also recognize from the video capture of the face expressions and code them automatically. Now, I'm a little oversimplifying, but that's basically what the technology in the lab allows us to do. We combine this with the fact that we can do this not just in the lab, but it's connected, that we can do it from the lab to anywhere outside, because we're very much with this whole online synchronous. We've got a ton of synchronous communications kind of thing that's going on, so that any of the screens, any of the computers in the lab can communicate with the outside. Any of the mobile devices that we have can do video feed from the outside and so on and so forth. Therefore, we can also capture video feeds. If I've got Jeanette on an iPad at her end, and I'm on in the lab at this end, I can actually sort of like record what I'm doing, record what she's doing also on her machine, wherever she may be, and we can catalog all of this on the same system simultaneously. So we can actually do analysis of interactions from people that are not just in the lab, but from outside the lab also. That's a very small, very quick overview of the possibilities of the current technologies in the lab. The only limits to what can be done with it is your imagination. So as we launch the EILab now, consider this an open invitation to students, profs, to actually come in and see what it does, what it can do. We've already had a couple of workshops on the system that have been set up. There will be more. I understand, Todd, that you've got somebody from Noldus coming in soon, in a few weeks. And there's going to be some more opportunities to sort of like figure out how some of these things are done and what is possible. Oh, and by the way, I'll come back to this afterwards. So current research that is going on right now, and this is just, I'm just scratching the surface because there's far more than what I've got on the screen. There's the whole technology competency and use thing, which is a personal project that I've had going on for about 15-ish years, close to 20 in some cases, that now I've got some students, including Todd, that are using this sort of like framework to be able to create not only profiles, but to try to validate those profiles and so on and so forth in terms of, it's fine to have technology, but how do we use it? What are the purposes that we use it for? How confident are we? How confident do we think we are? How does that affect how we use it? And how does that transform what we do with the technology? And so on and so forth. So there's that chunk of work. And one of the things that I'm now getting more and more interested in is as we were creating these profiles and so on and so forth of users, of how they use the technology, how do autistic kids use the technology? How different do they think about the technology, and how does it impact the way they think about their environment when they're using the technology? So we've got augmented reality project that is starting up. Also, actually, we've got two of them, if I'm not mistaken. One augmented. Okay, one AR. Okay, there's one augmented reality project with one of our MA students that is actually creating an AR app to be used on the iPhone or iPad, I'm not sure which, and that is designed specifically for kids with ASD to help them through a process of some kind. So these kinds of foci, if you want, are emerging, and they're emerging wonderfully from our crew of students, grad students, the greatest bunch on the planet. We've got another set of projects around problem-based learning and professional development, and that I'm going to totally off the cuff point to Roland and ask him to say a couple of words on that one. You want the mic?
Sure. The sound, by the way, is absolutely wonderful through the system. I'm just going to say a little bit about problem-based learning from the perspective that problem-based learning is, to a large extent, turning the learning opportunities over to the students themselves. So what we do really is, and Ilana could actually talk about this, she's experiencing it as a speaker. We essentially put together scenarios or context settings within which the students can find themselves, and they identify, and I actually like the terminology, create problems that they can actually see within that particular context. Then they go out to find out the kind of information that they need to have available to them to address the problem itself. They go out looking for additional information that is going to help them as they're taking a look at clarifying those problems, etc. And then they start working towards creating solutions to the problems as they're going along. And my role as the instructor is essentially to, according to one of my MA students, to give headaches to the students. In other words, to create cognitive dissonance, which is a big word that talks about making sure that they're upset with the differential between the prior conceptions, the ideas that they come to the problems with, and I'm going to deliberately cause a conflict in their mind by introducing other ways of looking at the same kind of concept. It's up to the students then to come to a means of harmonizing their thinking process. So that might entail taking the ideas that were introduced wholesale into their own schema so that they change their minds about how they understand the particular concepts that we're working on. Or it could be that there's some kind of assimilation of ideas from their prior notions, the way that they looked at it before, with new ideas, and they come to a sort of an amalgam kind of idea of those. Or they may decide that the new ways of looking at things just don't work for them. Any of those are part and parcel of what actually happens, I believe, in our own heads. A problem-based learning object then is just an object that enables people to actually see those contexts. So we're showing that in a video file, a video-based case study really. And there are a number of structures that are scaffolding or supporting the worker as they're going, the user as they're going through the problem-based learning object itself. They're really, really short, about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes or so. If you get any longer than that, then you get fatigue on the part of the user itself. And their only purpose, the only purpose, is to instigate discourse, discussion. I think I'll leave it at that. Thanks for the spot.
Thanks, Roland. Better he talk about that than me. At least you got it all straight. There are many other projects, one of which is written down there, which is the PBLO MOB, with which is a project we've got going. That was the result of an Insight grant, I think. And it's a collaboration with a colleague of ours at Concordia, actually former PhD student of mine, and Louise Davidson, and which is currently ongoing. And so we've got some iPads that made it down to Ecuador, and that's kind of interesting. There's another project, there's a series of a project that's sort of like was sleeping with Concordia that's now being revived also, simply because our partner at Concordia got named to a rather large political position and then sort of like re-emerged, and that's the whole ebook, and that involves race. And we are now, I see that we'll be meeting in March, I believe, and that is completely revived, so that's going to be going on also. And those are just some of the projects that are currently happening, all basically emanating from within the EILab in the past year almost. Now current research teams, teams, whatever, and it's sort of like a bit of a misnomer, but these are the bodies, if you want, that have been involved quite actively, if you want, over the past year. And my dream is that eventually that grid would contain just about everybody in the faculty. and grad students, you are all invited. As you can see, we've got Todd and April on there. And yeah, for those of you who know Todd, those of you who don't know Todd, there's Todd back there with the earphones on. Todd is slowly turning into, how can I put this to be polite, the soul of the lab. The amount of work that this guy has put into the lab and his research project, as well as assisting us in ours, has been absolutely immense. And I just want to say publicly, thank you very much, Todd, for all your hard work. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you're not allowed to graduate because we're keeping you around for a while. So the problem is you're going to get bad marks from this point on, sorry. You're staying around. There's also Sean Bullock, who was here up until 2 years ago, and who is now at UBC. Simon Fraser, but is still associated with Lab and still working with us on a couple of projects. And Anne-Louise Davidson, who is at Concordia, she's the one us also has got the lead on the Ecuador project, but with us as partners in this. And there's obviously Elizabeth Child and Bill Hunter, and apart from us. But I mean, this is, like I said, this is not a complete list. It's just sort of like a screen capture. The idea being not to show you who is exclusively in this group, but to show you that this group is I really like it to grow. And the idea is it's not what you can do for the lab, but it's basically what can the lab do for you guys. So anybody's got any ideas or any questions about what this lab can do for you, please ask any of us. If we don't have the answer, we'll cook one up together. There are some limitations and restrictions, obviously, because of the grant that we've got as to some of the things that we can or can't do. But usually what we try to do is we try to work around those as much as possible. And my attitude sometimes can be, well, as long as we don't get caught, I mean, and if you got a good project, let's go for it. But any kind of research that this lab can be useful to you please don't hesitate. If you've got any ideas, talk to any of us. It's open for you. And especially, like I say, grad students or the profs, this is now your lab. It's open, it works, all yours. I'm just going to not say anything because Maurice is going to be presenting this a little later on, but one of the things that has emerged out of the EILab which was a long-standing idea and hope and whatnot, was to create a journal, and we have done so. It is being launched, and Maurice will be actually speaking to this a little later on, right after this, I believe, right? About the journal. And all I'm going to say for now is thanks, Maurice, for picking up the ball on the journal. We needed somebody to actually pick it up and do something with it, and this guy's got it going, and thanks so much for this. And finally, the famous book. A book, yes, exactly, Diana and the number of people. This is a book that's been in the works for about 2 years. My original intention, I'll take the full blame for it, was to make it something that would be published under a UOIT e-press. That was my hope, my dream. I sat on numerous committees, pushed the agenda, pushed the idea as far as I could. Not going to happen. Not in my lifetime. Maybe a little later on, but maybe after I retire. But it's going to take a while, and it's simply because it's a huge, to create any kind of university press is a huge endeavor. But it's not dead. It's just I can't wait for them anymore. So the book is technically is ready. Right now I'm just going through the motions of getting it out. It should be coming out. I was hoping to have it out by today as an iBook on iBooks, and it's going to be for free. It looks now really good. For a while, it was the problem I was having with it is it would look great in portrait. It turned to landscape, and some of your picture, one of the pictures in your text, if you turned it sideways, it ended up in another chapter. It didn't really work, So, but that has most of it has gotten all fixed, and just going through the last bits and pieces. So it'll be out as an iBook very, very shortly. Almost for today, but not quite. So yeah, the title is Going Live Story: One Faculty of Education Designing and Teaching in an Online Graduate Program. And it's really going to be neat because, I mean, obviously I've read these chapters over and over and over and over and over again. And it really gives a fabulous picture of the diversity with which we all approach teaching in a grad program to begin with, and then doing it from in an online perspective. The chapters are extremely illuminating, if you want, in terms of how different the perspectives can be. And what's neat also is we've got a student reacting to each chapter, which is kind of neat. And then you've got sort of like the student reaction to this. It's all positive, but the thing is you've got all kinds of even contradictions in the book, which is fabulous because you've got some really different perspectives, different points of view. And yeah, I'm done anyways. And I think it's going to be a good read, especially for new faculty wanting to teach in an online program. whether they be here or anywhere else on the planet. I mean, I was just at University of New England last week, and one of the things that we talked about was this whole idea of online teaching and the diversity of perspectives. And what I found, and I was really proud of us here, is we are light years ahead of in terms of thinking of what we're doing with online programs. You know, with respect to some of our American counterparts. So kind of neat. I'm not talking about MOOCs. I won't talk about MOOCs. Bill prevented me from talking about MOOCs. He told me I wasn't even supposed to say the word MOOC here. So I won't go into the MOOCs idea. So anyways, the book is going to be then published because it was an idea that emerged out of the EILab anyway, so it's being published under the EILab banner, and it will appear in iBooks, and it'll appear, the link will appear also from the website as soon as the rest of the mechanics go through with between us and Apple at the moment, the Apple iBook store at the moment. All right. So thank you. EILab.ca, you can find us online. And as far as the website is concerned also, thank you, Todd, for putting in an insane amount of work to get the site actually working the way it's supposed to be working in most cases. And we're getting there. And we're getting there. So thanks so much. Any questions? Anybody awake? All good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Francois. A couple of housekeeping items. There are refreshments in the far side of this room, and there will be refreshments as well on the third floor. We'll be going to the breakout sessions at this point in time. So upstairs we've got Jeanette and Laura, followed by Carol, and down here we've got Marie. If you're looking for washrooms, out to the hallway to the right, and that's the same location on every floor. I think we're on time. No, that's not. Right. There was an error, it was my fault, on the last version of the schedule that was sent out last night. And my name shouldn't appear at all in there. And in that place, we should actually have Diana Petrarca and Ron McKelvey will be actually doing a presentation. So we'll move up to the third floor for those people who want to catch Jeanette and Laura's and Carol's presentation. And we'll give you a couple of minutes to get there.
Coffee's coming at 10:25. The coffee's coming at 10:25, okay?
Remind me to tell you guys about the CFI grant that Cheryl McGregor's putting in which I'm on that internal collection. There are 3 grants today. I said to my feedback, but apparently they're leveraging the EILab.
Yeah.
Well, so why aren't one of you on that?
Why aren't we on it? Technically, you're right. But I was aware of it. Initially, I think first draft, that was our initial
I gotta go. She says she's got some websites and other things, so we have to share.
No, thanks.
Yeah, you'll see that Diana's is actually loaded already as a file there. So it's just a share on the screen.
Okay.
Bring up the actual site. It's already loaded.
Should I also give him, because we're also going to demonstrate the field experience portal?
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work. You just want to run it inside the browser and then share it as well. Yeah, sure.
And then, okay, so.
Oh, thanks, Elizabeth. Turn recording off.
Hi, how are you?
Sorry.
I wanted to quickly introduce myself.
Hi, just stopping the recording.